Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the reading room. And it's sort of a bit of a early one or late one, depending on where you are. Just the way our time zones met up. But I have with me today Fro, who is a newcomer to the channel. I met you, I think it was in Praise's Room from memory.
Yeah, praise AM,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I haven't uploaded that sequence yet of misfires and misadventures in Praise's room. But you were just hanging out in Praise's room, sort of having a discussion with Praise and the gang. And yeah, you wanted to talk to me, so we got in touch by email, and then we decided to have you on because you had questions that you wanted to go through, and yeah, I like discussions as well. So how
Mhm.
are you, and what sort of led you over here?
Yeah, so I'm good. Thank you for asking. I've been back and forth in the scene for a long time. I've been a theist and an atheist and a theist and an atheist. I would call myself extremely confused atheist or
Okay.
thinking
Yeah.
atheist. Yeah, I
Yeah.
I I see I see a lot of things that I have problems with in theism and also in atheism.
Okay. Well, usually I'd have sort of a general list of questions or things that I want to go through, but sort of that's
Shoot.
usually when I it's a person from another channel and I know what they're doing and I know what they're about, so I'd sort of tailor it to that. But really,
Right.
because I don't really know what you want to discuss, I kind of just held off on doing that. But I'm not sure a confused atheist is really a thing. I'm not even sure what that would mean. I mean, you have sort of a strong atheist position and a weak atheist position, or sort of hard and soft atheism, depending on your definitions. Um,
Right.
so I'm not sure, because I mean, an atheist is just someone that does not believe that a god exists. So,
Yeah.
well, that's generally what the
And I would
definition of
agree to
atheist
that
is.
definition.
Sure,
Most
sure. Well,
definitely.
let's
Yeah.
just use that one, the
Yeah.
normative, I guess, the most common definition.
I
And
guess
so
I
when you
guess I
say,
have problems keeping my atheism aboard. would I
well,
is maybe what I
I
would say.
I mean, but sort of when you don't believe a god, you mean it's sort of a true dichotomy when you either believe that a god exists or you don't believe that a god exists, and so it
Yeah, and I
sounds like
guess I
you're sort of.
switch back and forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But when I met you, you seemed to be arguing for sort of not that atheism wasn't the correct position or the sort of accurate position for reality,
Mhm.
but that
Mhm.
theism is more. I guess it's more comfortable, or it feels better, or something along those lines. And
Yeah,
so
I
is
would say
that
so.
sort of. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because I do watch a lot of the Wachowski sisters, and they sort of Matrix and V for Vendetta, and they explore
Mhm.
that a lot. What are you happy with the truth, or are you happy not knowing the truth if it's going to make you more comfortable? I think it is a good question. I think it is
Yeah,
one
I
of
think
those
that's a very
things
good
that.
question. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've got my opinion. My
Mhm.
opinion is that in the short term, it can be more comforting and feel better, but I don't think that not having the truth ever, or not following sort of rationality to the logical conclusion, is ever good in the long term. For instance, if you sort of ignore, say, climate change, for instance, right? If you don't like the idea of climate change because we're in trouble, it's very comfortable to go, well, it's not going to be a problem, and it's just normal part of everyday, the sequence of events in climate. But
Yeah.
later on down the track, that may be a huge issue that can it's not going to be comfortable at that point when the sea levels rise, or all of these problems occur. So I think that always it's better to know the truth about reality, because while in the short term it may be comfortable to believe something that may not be true, it always in the long term I believe it's detrimental, if not just to myself, then to the rest of the human species. Um, and that's not a problem for some people. Some people don't care about the rest of humanity.
I guess I would say if I was in the Matrix, I wouldn't have taken the pill. I think I would rather live in the bliss
Okay, so
than
that's the blue
knowing the
pill.
truth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he had two pills. He had a blue pill and
Yeah,
a
the
red
red or
pill.
the blue pill. I'm very blue pilled.
Okay. Yeah, and that's your choice. But you know, and I don't know really what to say to that. You know, if you're happier not knowing the truth, then that's, you know, your choice.
Mm,
Or if you're happier believing something that may not in fact be true, is not demonstrably true, that's your choice. But the problem comes that later on down the line, there's going to be problems with that. I would
sure.
rather take the pill that tells me what the actual truth is than live in a comfortable lie, because even
I,
though you don't know it, you're still enslaved at that point. Say the Matrix analogy, for instance, you're still
yeah,
enslaved.
yeah. I guess it would maybe help you a little to know a little of my background.
Sure.
Should we start there? Maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so when I grew up in a very atheist household.
Mhm.
A lot of people that was around me were atheists. My mom and dad were hippies. I'm born in 1979, and I was the result of a one night stand of my mom. And my dad has been married like 5, 6 times.
Mhm.
In Norway, where I'm from, is a very atheistic country. When I was
Yes.
16, I saw the movie The Prince of Egypt, and that was what got me interested in religion. It's the movie I've seen most times at the cinema. I love that movie.
I don't think I've seen it.
It has. Sorry.
I don't think I've seen it.
The Prince of Egypt? Yeah, no, it's definitely. You should never see it with me, Mark, because I know
Okay.
every line and I
Ah, that's all right. No.
sing to it and everything like that. And I guess uh, exactly at the same time as that happened, I met Mormons, and uh, I became very involved with the Mormon faith. And I had a period of my life, I was very, very young, where I went out at day with the Mormon missionaries telling the gospel. Then I went home and took a lot of drugs.
Mhm.
I think it's shorter for me to tell you what drugs I didn't take than what I did take, and
Okay.
that had a deep inflect of me. So I felt very I felt like I had almost like a split personality, where I felt like Christian at day and atheist at night, and
Okay.
that had a tremendously huge effect on me. Like, I have still family and friends now that are Mormons, and I just, yeah, I never could let it go away from my head that there was something outside of just the normal day existence that was bigger than me, that was staring things. I think it also comes from my belief that we have free will, and I had a huge problem with that in an atheistic grounding, I guess, because it feels like a lot of atheists that I have listened to, at least, doesn't believe in free will, and then the problem of evil became very
Mm.
big in my life, where
Yeah.
I was like, if there's evil in life, if there's evil on Earth, why is there evil? And I came to the conclusion that I don't want evil, and I wanted a god to be there to kind of out uh solve out the problem for me.
About problems,
I
yeah. And
I,
how's
I
it
don't
going
know
so far on
if
that?
I'm making sense. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry?
How's God doing so far on that?
Not good.
No, I don't see any problem, and sort of my intro video has, I don't see any problem that humanity has sort of addressed that has actually had God directly help with it in any way. It seems to
Mm,
be humans solving these problems, like for instance, inventing that ability to, turn nitrogen into fertilizer that sort of has produced more food, and the ability to come up with laws to protect us, and everything seems to be a product of humans, not of a god. So I'm still waiting for any sort of conclusive demonstration that God's done anything to actually help us with our sort of the everyday problems and the everyday existence that we've had. I don't think you have to believe in free will to be an atheist, or not believe determinism to be an atheist. I'm sort of, I lean towards compatibilism, which is
mm.
that free will and determinism sort of exist side by side. That there is something in the brain and consciousness that can lend to free will. That might be an illusion. I don't know for sure. It's very hard to test that. I do lean towards it because it does seem like, with acts of will, we can decide to do something or not do something. And so I don't know how you would prove determinism, and I don't know how you'd falsify determinism. So with most falsifiable things, it's kind of very difficult to even consider as being a likely explanation. But um,
Yeah, a
I
movie
kind of lean
that
toward.
really got me in a movie that really steered me in one direction is kind of a weird one, but it's Sliding Doors. Have you ever seen Sliding
Yeah,
Doors?
Gwyneth Paltrow, I think it
Yeah,
was.
it's
Yeah,
stupid,
yeah,
stupid love
um,
movie where there's
yeah.
two stories where she gets on a sub and she doesn't get on the
Well,
ground. Sorry,
that was
and
actually copied from a way better
yeah,
German movie called Run Lola Run,
yes, I
where
love
she,
Run Lola
yeah, that is an
Run. Yeah, yeah,
amazing film.
yeah.
And I think that
I
one's
saw that
better because
afterwards, and that really also like it got me to thinking we had free will.
yeah, and it's kind of the idea that then they did three different options kind of thing. But
Yeah.
so, and I mean, they're kind of taking into sort of a sort of multiple dimensionality and a many worlds kind of thing. Like, is it
Hmm.
possible in this world? But we don't know whether that's even possible, or whether the unfolding of everything is deterministic. I think we do have free will. Um, some people say it's the illusion of free will, and I'm like, well, if it is, it's like, how do you tell if reality is an illusion?
Yeah.
Like, how can you tell, and how can you not tell if reality is an illusion? It seems like a very hard question to actually address. Sam
Right.
Harris
There was
points
also a
to
very yeah. I would
well,
also
Sam
say
Harris
there was a
points to
Norwegian.
studies saying that the mind decides stuff, and then sort of makes up reasons why it's already done it,
Right.
like before you actually make
Yeah.
the decision. But I don't know if there is a way that a slice of randomness is added to it, like if your brain can make a truly random choice, and then
Mm.
either accept that random choice or dismiss it. And in that case, it is free will, but it's very, very difficult to say, incredibly difficult to say. Um,
I
sorry,
agree.
what were you saying?
I think there was also a Norwegian book that had a very big thing that kind of got me into thinking what I believe in free will about something called contrafactual historical research, and what it is a little like, what would happen if, for example, Hitler won the war in Germany, or what if O.J. Simpson didn't kill his wife? Like, it's a weird book where it's like looking at history and see what would happen in history out from that point to see if anything would have changed. It goes a little to one of the like mental problems that I got, where I was asked one time if I could, would I go back in time and kill Hitler when he was dead?
Sure.
And it's and it's like, that had a tremendous effect on me, on like how I I can see that things I do now has consequences for me
Hmm.
later. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't know whether there is any of these possibilities played out in any other world. We honestly, we
Right.
don't know. So um, there was something a while back talking about, I think it was Beyond the Rabbit Hole or something. It was something like that. It was sort of talking about in quantum possibilities there are
Hmm.
and it was complete load of rubbish. It was just sort of them misrepresenting the quantum physics basically to say, hey, all of these things are played out and then it collapses into no, it doesn't. That's not what they're saying. It may be that they're played out. We don't know, and that's the whole point. And there's a lot of speculation done on are there any other possibilities played out? And when we're talking about possible worlds, for instance, when philosophers talk about possible worlds, they're saying,
Mm.
is it logically possible that this could be the case in another world? So when we sort of say, hey, in one possible world, could I be the president? Well, yeah, there's nothing logically against that. And
Right.
another possible world could the laws of physics be different, and that doesn't seem to be logically possible, and still have me here. So there's a whole bunch of things that they sort of go through on possible worlds, but they're not really talking about sort of these scenarios are actually played out. They're
Mm.
talking about what is logically and possible within reality without contradicting the fundamental laws of our universe. So um, I don't know about sort of the sliding doors possibilities kind of thing. It more just seems
Mm.
to be a philosophical exercise in order
But
to
I guess
show that
all
these are
those, yeah,
possibles.
I guess
Yeah.
all those things, or all those problems that I have with the sliding door experiment, that I have with
Mm.
alternative historical facts, all those things, uh, if I really look at it, like from far away, I think the solution to that fits better in a world picture where God is than a non-God. To take
Why?
it back to why?
Yeah, because if there's sort
Um,
of these possibilities, like why does because according to theism, there's only one possible way things could have turned out. And
well,
um,
some theists, yes.
Well, yeah, but most of them have that God knows what's going to happen in the future. And that's where the
Sure.
problem of predestination or pre of foreknowledge versus free will really that the rubber hits the road. Because if God knows that I am going to slide my mouse to the right in 5 seconds time, right? He knows
Hmm.
that. Then me sitting here and that not happening yet, is there any other choice I can make that I don't slide my mouse to the right? And if that's the
Right.
case, it is only the illusion of free will, because I will do that. I have no other choice. I have nothing else that I can do because God's already seen it.
Mm. Yeah,
And
no,
so
I think that's a very good argument. but I think that kind of solves my problem better. Like in my as from my point of view, I think the illusion of free will fits best under a God world, I guess.
The solution for what? Sorry.
The illusion of free will fits better under a God.
Well, like I said, I'm not convinced that it is the illusion of free will. I think we may do have free will. I was reading a book about neuroplasticity, and it seems to be that our brains can, in times of great stress or times of very, very um, harsh duress, not just follow the neural pathways that are set for it. Because don't forget, the more you follow a neural pathway, the stronger it gets and the more likely you are to follow it. But sometimes
Right.
it can, and the reason why it was called neuroplasticity is they compare it to a lump of plastique. Like if you are trying to overcome a problem, it will fit between gaps like plastic. You can sort of squeeze it through things. But it, like, apparently if you come against a very high barrier and you're trying to do something very creative, it will also explode in really unexpected directions, especially under a lot of stress, and come up with some sort of neural pathways that weren't there before. And deterministically, it probably wouldn't have created without something else acting upon it. So that might be the seed of free will, but we're so lacking in understanding how the brain and creativity works that we're not sure. Like, if we can come up with a deterministic process to say, hey, okay, if you are under a lot of stress, you will file through all of your memories and it will generate a new neural pathway based upon X, Y, and Z kind of thing, then yeah, that's a deterministic process. Totally get it. But if it is the fact that it does something really, it tosses up something random, truly random, in order to solve a problem that cannot be solved under with your own memories and your own processes, then that may be the seeds of free will. That may be that where we can go, okay, I'm going to create something completely different and it's not determined on any previous parameters. Do I know that for sure? Absolutely not. Do I like the idea? A little bit, not really, because it means that most of the things we do are just deterministic. We're just reacting or just sort of going through what we thought
But I
before.
guess I guess what I feel like is, and I guess I feel like a god would solve that problem very, very easy.
Well,
I mean,
how?
because and I guess my point for that is, like, if we said that God had full control of what will happen in the future and we don't have any choice, it doesn't really matter. But if there is no God and we don't have any choice, it feels like we're kind of prisoners of ourselves instead of having someone that decides for us.
Well, I don't think we're really prisoners of ourselves in that case. I think we're just um, going through what our sort of genetics and brain, and then we're more of a sort of a gestalt system, because the deterministic factors that can cause a change of, say, someone changes their mind and goes down another path or takes on another idea, can be another person. Like, just because things are deterministic doesn't mean that we can't, if we want to change our behavior, for instance, it is very difficult to change your core beliefs, for instance. But,
But
you can go
yeah,
to therapy and you can talk about it and you can actually change your core beliefs by addressing those concerns. So
but isn't it something fundamentally wrong with being determined in a world where it wasn't determined that it would happen in the first place?
what do you mean by it
Doesn't
isn't determined it would happen in the first place? I don't know
so
what you mean by that.
so okay, let's say we're here by chance. All is here because of chance and things that has happened in the past. The Earth was not
Well,
created. Everything was like not
it depends
determined.
what you mean by chance in that case, because usually chance, like when we say, hey, it was chance that that person was hit by a rock that came off of a landslide or something, right? It was just pure chance they were hit. It isn't actually chance. It's a series of deterministic things that governed how that rock
Yeah, but isn't
would
that the
fall.
problem? Isn't that the problem? Because then we
Why?
get to the question, what is it that determines that?
Determines what?
That it happened.
Well, it's just a matter of physics and the reality around us. You know, a rock
Yeah,
will
but
have
does
a
that
certain mass.
reality fit in with it just being like? I'm not using chance in a bad way. I'm just saying that wouldn't it makes more sense if there would be a maker than
No,
just no, not in your mind?
no. Well, I mean,
For me, it is.
you know,
Yeah.
hang on, Fro, you know computers and you know what pseudo-random numbers are, right?
Yes.
Right. So really, like there may be properly random events, right? So
Mm,
acausal events. Like for instance, radiometric decay may be properly acausal, like things just happen, and it happens at randomly. But there may be no properly random things that when we talk about, like for instance, you're rolling a dice and we say, hey, that's random, right? That's just random. But
mm.
really, it is the amount of spin that you put on it and the vector that's flying upon and the amount of force on that, what it's made out of, what the surface is made of, all of these things that we can't possibly analyze. If if you have done dice rolling for a lot, just say you're a very, very seasoned role player, you might put some backspin on the dice to try and adjust the odds. And I would swear you can do that if you roll enough dice, right?
Right.
So they're not. So if you extend that out, nothing may be truly random. It may be that we're looking at a series of deterministic events. And this is for physical things, right? Just for
Mm,
things that don't have an agent, no mind to govern them. They're just,
mm.
the way that rocks fall, the way that snowflakes are created, the way that, but we can't possibly predict them. We can barely predict the weather. And that is a sort of a chaotic.
But isn't it a problem? Isn't it a problem for you in your mind that if we took about away just one person from your family tree, you wouldn't exist?
Sure. It would be a problem for me. Well, I mean, I guess it wouldn't
Right.
be a problem for me. I wouldn't be around to know
You
it.
wouldn't
I mean,
exist.
there'd be no
Right.
problem.
So
Right.
so the
And
chance of you getting
yeah,
here are extremely small.
sure. I don't
And
know
I,
what your point
I, I
is.
guess and I guess what I'm trying to say is that for me it fits better if it was a God's plan that you would be here and I would be here than that.
Well,
Then
no,
then the
because hang on,
because
Fro,
the chance is
hang
like
on, Fro.
yeah,
Let me
so
express your
small.
point. Like, don't
Yeah,
just move on. Well, the thing is that you're saying that there's something special about me, that is a special thing. If I wasn't here, there would probably be another human here instead,
sure.
right?
I
There
agree.
would probably be someone. And the amount of chances that you have, and yes, it's incredibly unlikely that I am here today because all of my ancestors had survived to adulthood and have children in order to survive. But that isn't really a low chance because somebody would have gotten to adulthood and had children. And if my parents didn't have children, maybe the next family over would have more children. Like
Mm.
the whole idea is that there's so many opportunities there of the millions and millions of people that there is a chance of it happening. It's like saying, hey, the chances of this, like just say I win the lotto tomorrow, the
Mm.
chances are trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions to one. Like there's almost no chance of me winning the lotto. It's so unlikely to be ridiculous. But every time, or almost every time, the lotto, someone will win it, right? It's
Mm.
almost impossible that any one person wins it, but
Mm.
someone will win it. And the reason why is because the amount of chances going along. Was a lot of people in the past. That's a lot of chances for someone to get to adulthood and have children. It needn't be
I
my
understand that,
ancestors,
but
but
it
it will
makes
be
you
some
special.
ancestors.
But it
Well,
makes you
not
special.
really.
It
Well,
does.
only special in the way that, sort of I'm here now.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's like saying, well, you're special because you won the lotto. It's like, well, no, it's not really special. It is special in a certain sense that you are unique in that probability just happening to hit you. But you're not special
Mm.
because the probability must hit somebody.
That's an interesting point of view. Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I'm special, but everybody's special like that because they got hit with the probability. And some family
Mm.
trees died out. And look, 99 point something percent of species died out as well, which is
Yeah.
also really
The
weird for
dodo
a god.
bird.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
well, we
Yeah.
know that was humans. I mean, that wasn't just,
No.
random
It.
selection. That was
It was a
absolutely
joke.
human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But and there's megafauna that died out and all of these things. Mammoths died out, and
Yeah.
it's kind of weird to think about a god that creates all these things for 99% of them to just be wiped out over the course of I mean, why bother? What's the point?
Have you ever played The Sims?
Oh yeah, sure. Sure.
Okay. I really enjoy playing The Sims.
Okay.
I love Minecraft and things like that. And what I feel like sometimes I'm a character in the Sims game. I I've thought many times to myself that
Mm.
um that I'm just one part of a very elaborate uh game show almost. It's a little like that Jim Carrey movie. What is it called
Uh,
again? Where he's trapped inside of a
Truman Show.
The
Truman
Truman
Show.
Show.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I feel like it's a bit of the Truman Show. It's a little bit of The Sims, and it I get I get to thinking if I didn't exist, I wouldn't have the pleasure of living, and that kind of scares me.
Well, you also wouldn't have any suffering either. But that's sort of I think that the with life the the nice things outweighs the suffering. I think that there's a lot of joy to be gained in life, and there's a lot of things to experience in life, and there's a lot of knowledge to be gained in life. I think that um,
Mm,
and I sort of see it at we're all a part of this very very long chain in a very I guess, privileged position of being smart enough to be aware of the life around us, and
yeah,
and clever enough to sort of start to reach off our home planet. I mean, it's incredible. I was
yeah,
talking with Ember. I don't know if you know Ember,
no,
amazing person. They were saying, yeah, the only thing that sort of you know um, annoys me about dying is that I'm not going to be able to see all the wonderful technology that we're going to discover and get into and all
yeah,
kinds of things. And I kind of agree, but at the same time, we're just a link in that chain of passing the torch onwards. We're just passing it along to another generation who will then go on to build on the steps of our knowledge,
I mean,
our purpose.
I grew up in a world in Norway when we didn't have cell phones or the internet. I mean,
Sure.
I still remember when we had our first like ADSL line into my house, and it took 10 minutes to download my porn. I'm that old.
Well, well,
And
I'm older than Fro. I'm
yeah,
older than you.
yeah,
I'm 3 years older than you.
yeah, and it's just like I've seen the revolution we gone through, like especially the last like 10 years, the
Sure.
technological uh, leap we have just done in those years, like the ability to do what we are doing now. We didn't have that as kids, and I guess it scares me to think that all of this is not for a reason. Like, it scares me. It scares me that there isn't a God. I guess I'm a little bit scared that God doesn't exist.
I don't know why that would scare you unduly. I'm not sure
Because
why.
it means it's all for nothing.
Why is it all for nothing?
Because there's no purpose. We're just
Well,
a part of the continuing a line of, like, your kids will have more kids and their kids will have more kids and so on and so on. There's no purpose.
well, I mean, we set our own purpose. Currently our purpose is to, or the human race's purpose is to kind of get to Mars, and for that we probably need a moon base. So we're working on that.
Yeah, but
It's not like,
that's so concrete. It's I guess I want something more. I want something less
like what?
concrete, I guess. Um,
I
like
mean,
God. I want God to exist.
okay, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter what you want. It either exists or it doesn't. Doesn't
No,
reality
no,
hasn't.
no. But I'm just being very honest with you. I
Look,
I
I,
want I want God to exist. I want Him to exist, so I don't have to think about all those things.
and I want a solid gold toilet, but it's just not in the cards, is it, baby? Like this
I
is
can
the
make you
thing.
one.
Right, right.
In
But
the sense,
it's an Austin Powers reference, but
yeah, I
like
know.
it's just, yeah, because we want something doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get it. The question
Yeah.
is that can you do something with your life that is meaningful, that has
Mm.
meaning? And a lot of people will say you need a god for that, but obviously so many atheists have meaningful lives. That is obviously not true. It's 100% not true. In fact, my
No,
life has
I
more.
agree.
Well, Fro, my
Mm.
life has more meaning because I'm not putting it down to a God decided this for me. If free will is true, then I decided what I would do with my life. And the
Mm.
things that I've decided to do with my life are to promote that this is one world, that we're in a incredibly hostile environment, and we have to all work together because we are, and it's not like we're an imminent threat, but we have a very immense and huge environment to overcome. And the only way humans are going to do it is by working together. We need every single
Mm.
person to realize that they're not on their own, and we have to work together. And these, fighting over the earth is like ants on a leaf in a river fighting over the leaf. It's silly and pointless. And that's what I've decided to do. But I don't expect anybody else to do that. But that's what I've decided to do. And it
Mm.
actually comforts me to know that a God didn't have to explain that to me, didn't have to order it to me. I look around, I use my reasoning, I use my logic, and I find, hey, this is where we are, and this is where the best and brightest minds have determined us to be. And
Mm.
here's what is rational. Here's what we ought to do, because that is the way for all of us to progress. and
Mm.
and you can sort of say, hey, you want something a bit more ephemeral. There's nothing wrong with serving your fellow humans and taking care of your fellow humans. It's very
No, there's nothing
fulfilling.
wrong with it. I just wish. I guess. I guess it bounds down to this. I'm afraid of dying, and I'm afraid of not existing. And I
Okay.
guess. I guess. Yeah. Uh, how
Are you
much do you
afraid of
know?
hell?
Yeah.
Mm, I'm so sorry.
How much do you know about Islam?
A fair bit, a fair bit. I know
Okay.
that they do have their hell and their paradise, which seems a bit more
Right.
corporeal and worldly than the sort of ephemeral heaven. But they certainly do have an idea of divine pleasure after you die, and
Right.
punishment for failing to meet up to. And it's not just believing in God; it is following the requirements of Allah and Muhammad's commandments from Allah. So you have to pray 5 times a day. You have to
Right.
do all of these things in order to qualify for that paradise. Yeah.
So I was a part of a thing called. It was kind of like Discord. I don't remember what it was called. You were like talking to other people on a server. It was an app.
Okay.
It was super popular for a time. Was really exclusive.
Oh,
Well, anyway, what was it called?
uh, I
Clubhouse.
think I know. Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
Clubhouse. Yeah.
I was a huge part of a clubhouse for a while, and I got to know a lot of Muslims there through Clubhouse. I was like going between Christianity, atheism, and I even took my Shahada on Clubhouse one day, like because I just felt like that what was the right thing to do there. I was and am still very confused. So I guess one of the things I really, really, really like about Islam is the thought of this all being a test to see if we're worthy of coming to God. Because I
Well,
have
that's
suffered so I've been mentally sick since I was 22. I'm 45 this year, and
sorry to
I've
hear that.
been in and out of mental hospitals all my life.
Mm.
And one of the reasons why I hope there's something else after death is because if hell is a burning fire, I would rather have that some days than the days I have on this earth. Uh, when you struggle with mental things like I have done for so many years, there's some hope in believing that that I will be rewarded in a way that it's worth this.
But what if it's not true?
Then I'm not sure it's worth it.
Oh, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that because we're basically, and what I've noticed, Fro, is that you seem to be basing whether or not something is true on whether you want it to be true. And um, I, things are true or not, whether we want it to be true or not. And it's just sort of, and that's a hard reality that we um we can change our perspective on things. We can change how we look at
Mhm.
it. For instance, I mean, I've had depression, I've had anxiety, I still have anxiety, and mostly it was due to being horrendously bullied and abused in school by other
Yeah,
children.
same here.
Um, yeah, and being absolutely beaten up and smacked down, humiliated, and just
Yep.
and for a while I absolutely hated myself, kind of thing. And I did a lot of
Mm.
therapy, like a lot of therapy for it. I think
Yeah,
that
same here.
um, I think that part of this channel, me using my name, because I was sort of ashamed to say my name because I didn't like who I was, but now I'll sort of proudly say it
Mm.
because that's in a way, even though it makes me nervous. And I had a room about fear the other day and sort of had a very, very real talk about what scares me, and other people sort of said about what scares them. And so I'm going to be confident in that I am good enough, and I'm not perfect, and I've got flaws all over the place, and I understand that, but I'm good enough. But what I want to get across is that you sort of have this idea of dialectics. Have you ever heard of that? If you've gone through any of the sort of
Mm-hmm.
CBT and stuff, it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
this perspective that yes, I went through trauma, and it nearly destroyed me on multiple occasions. It
Mm-hmm.
nearly ended me on multiple occasions. However, I now, because of that, have a real compassion towards people struggling. I have a real understanding of what it means to hate who you are and have real compassion for people that I wouldn't have if I didn't go through it myself. Now, that doesn't make the experience a good experience. It was horrible. To use a metaphor, it was hell, a total hell.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make it a good thing, but I can at least acknowledge that there was a good thing that came about, even if it was awful. And I can take that and go, if I can heal that scar, I can use the good that I got to do things that make me feel good about myself, to make me happier with who I am and what I'm doing. And I think that's
Yeah, I
important.
I also have had that in my day. Like one of the things that
Yeah.
makes me survive is two things. Like, well, it's three things. It's the thought of what doesn't kill you make you stronger, and also I have gone away from thinking about the future, about very concentrating of what can I do today to make my life the best way of being me. It's very carpe diem, like seize the day.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the, and the,
I
the
think that
yeah,
statement's bad, Fro. I don't like that statement. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. There's some R word survivors that, I don't think that's useful. I think that the idea that if we survive it, then we're better off for it is not a useful way to think.
why
The
is that?
dialectical. Well, it's because you 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 still can be like a mess afterwards, and something can
Sure.
really drag you back in your life. It's not necessarily if you survive it, then you're stronger. But I think it more is you have to find the sort of silver lining of it.
Mm,
Like there's no way you can look back on an event like that and go, well, it made me stronger, therefore it's good. No, it still is a bad thing. It still is absolutely terrible. But I can
sure.
see where I can find a grain of gold in that utter, crap pile, basically.
Mm, mm, yeah.
Because I mean, I still have things to this day that I struggle with, like things to this day that I try to address and try to work upon, because it does still affect me. If something happens that is similar to something that happened back in my childhood, it still does affect me. But that's okay.
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
coping with it in the best way I can. And
Mm,
there's, I try to look at the things that I can take away that are good, but that in no way means it's good, and it no way means I'm stronger for it having happened.
mm,
I think that if it didn't happen, I would probably be a lot better off. But
mm.
um, I'm going to try and find the things the things that, because it happened, I have, rather than what it took away. I think that is the only way to go about it. And work
Yeah, that's
on.
a very beautiful way of putting it. It's it that really touched me, Mark. Thank you.
Well, that's just the way I look at it, and the way that
Yeah.
I've coped with my own abusive past. So
Mm,
um, I and it's hard and it's difficult, but
yeah.
we don't sort of say, hey, but I'd feel better if it never happened, so I'm going to believe it never happened. The reality of the situation is the reality of the situation. So we
Do you
try
ever
to find,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you ever think in those very hard times, like when you're down, uh, that it would be easier if God existed?
Um, no, not really. No, but
No?
I was, yeah, no, I don't.
Mm, I do.
Because, well, it would be. I would like it if a God existed. I
Yeah.
would like it if there was some justice for all of the horrible people doing horrible things, and if there was somebody to right all wrongs at the end of the day and offer a perfect world and things like that. Of course that would be something I would want if it were true. But I guess if I did think that was true for a start, I'd be kind of outraged at the amount of humans just suffering when you could do something about it. I would kind of go, well,
Mm,
why aren't you doing something for a start? And again, at the same time, my sense of rationality, I can't just think because I want something to be true, therefore it's true. I
right.
know deep down that no matter how much I want something to be true, it's either going to be true or it's not going to be true. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
how much I
yeah,
want
no.
it to be true.
I mean, Santa Claus is the perfect
Sure,
example of that.
sure, yeah.
Um, yeah, no,
Yeah, or somebody and the people are preyed on, like people that
mm,
get catfished, for instance, online. They want
yeah,
that girl to be real, and I've seen sort of those reality TV shows, just a couple here and there on the internet, like in YouTube, where the person's saying no, that person has to be a real person, even when they're showing the evidence. Hey, it's a model, they're a porn star, it's a fake picture, their IP
mm,
address is coming from, or their internet connection is coming from, um,
Bolivia.
uh, Bolivia,
Yeah,
right? And then they still go,
yeah,
no, it has to be true. It's because they want it so bad to be true. But at the end of the day, it's not. And it sucks. Don't get me wrong, it
mm.
sucks, but it's not true. Whether you want it or not, it just is not true.
Do
And
you
and
think
it's
that's one of the reasons why we as kids has had imaginary friends?
I didn't. I didn't have an imaginary friend
Oh,
as a
oh,
kid.
I did.
I'm not sure if it's
Most
why.
out. Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's why most, like, a lot of kids do have imaginary friends. Sure,
yeah.
I'm not going to deny that. I honestly don't know. I don't know if
I
that's
think
the
I think
case.
one of the ways of and this is kind of interesting. I guess one of the ways of looking at it, it's like we created God because we were feeling bad. Like we needed God. We created God because we needed an excuse or a reason to go on in a way. I have thought of that many times. It's a little like the when I drown people in The Sims on purpose.
Right.
Like I've done that. Yeah, I'm a psychopath.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's like uh I al- and also when like Truman like escapes the Truman Show, I sometimes wonder if like what do you think Truman was happier not knowing?
No.
No, me neither.
No. He was obviously unhappy, and when
Yeah,
he met a person from the real world who was a genuine person, and he
yeah,
immediately felt an actual attraction rather than a fake love
yeah,
that he was in. I think that sort of, when it is just a simulation, a part of that sort of um, that ungenuine thing would come through.
yeah,
I think that, but to your thing about why did we invent God? I think it is because, apart from all else, we're really unhappy with having no answer for something. I mean, I'm not happy having no answers for things.
Yeah,
I'm not
God is a
happy.
good solution. Yeah.
It's a really good solution. And before
Yeah.
God, there was sort of polytheism, where each god sort of controlled their own sort of set of things, like war and love, and all of these different single characteristics. And before that, there's animism, where you basically attribute things to spirits, the spirit of the wind and the spirit of the trees and all of these things, to explain them. But so I think it was sort of the very, very earliest attempt to give answers to things that we don't know. And humans are nothing if not creative when it comes to answers about things we don't know. We see that every day. We see it with people assigning
Right.
conspiracies to things, and people bringing up the aliens to explain why their husband left them and things like that. We're really good at providing explanations. We're unhappy with we
Yeah,
don't
and
know.
that's kind of the reason why I brought up the thing with, as a child, a lot of people have imaginary friends. I
Sure.
guess one of the ways of, like, I wonder sometimes if like what is the difference between God and an imaginary friend? And I think that's, like, I came to the conclusion that there's isn't a difference.
Well, so an imaginary friend, obviously, I mean, usually the imaginary friend will be doing things in the real world. A god is maybe an extension of that. I honestly don't
Mm.
know. I don't know enough about imaginary friend stuff to know, but a lot of things are assigned to God when we don't know
I can
why
see
they
a lot of
occur.
the same reasons of believing in an imaginary friend than a goddess.
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
Um,
I think also imaginary friends are used for children that do things wrong, so they've got someone else to
yeah,
blame
yeah.
as well. So,
And that is goddess
um,
in a way, as well. Is like, oh,
well,
I can
it it may
repention
be the
in a way.
devil kind of thing, because a lot of
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
we did have a lot of people, sort of saying, giving a defense of the devil made me do it. I think the last time that was tried was in the 70s or something. But up until recently, that was a big thing, that it wasn't
yeah.
your fault for a crime, because literally a supernatural entity made you do it, which is kind of incredible.
I like what the beheaded Kamikaze said here. God as an imaginary friend is an extension of human need to feel like someone cares for us and is looking out for us. And I think he's
Yeah.
110% correct about that.
But what's God actually done to look out for people and care for them?
Yeah, no, that is a extremely good question.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that people do feel comforted, and people that go, "Well, prayer doesn't do anything." Well, it
Yeah.
does. Like, if you are, and Matt Delahanty, I think, gave this example: when you're in a mine and you're running out of air, and people pray and remain calmer, then yeah, it definitely
Mm,
works. But if you're talking about making substantial changes in your life, then no, it
mm,
doesn't work. It may be a psychological imperative, but there's other things that can do that. There's things like motivational, there's self-affirmation, there's all these different techniques to sort of, promote change in your life. Prayer
mm,
doesn't actually do anything that isn't psychological, I guess, is what I'm saying. um, the Templeton Foundation did a investigation into intercessory prayer, i.e., people praying for one another with sick people in the hospital, and
mm,
that's a religious organization. They found out that prayer, it works at the rate of chants, right? So
mm,
the prayer made no difference except when the people knew they were being prayed for, and then they did slightly worse. And the researchers chalked it up to, there's a lot of if you're a faithful believer and someone's praying for you, there's a lot of
mm.
pressure to get better, and that may have actually made them get worse. Like it's just prayer doesn't do anything. There's no demonstrated place where a god has come down and actually made anybody's life better. It seems to be, and don't get me wrong, it may be that humans who have a religion but I'm not going to deny that people in religions have done charity. They've made people's lives better, also made them worse. Catholic Church being high up there, totally granted. But it seems to be humans doing these things, not a god. Even the good things, which is why I get frustrated. Well, somebody will go into hospital and they'll have surgeries, and that's the doctors and nurses and staff and everybody works tirelessly, saves their life, and they come out and they thank Jesus. It's sort of like this. Well, what did he actually do?
Do you think a lot of people use God as a crutch?
I'm not sure what you mean by a crutch. I think that
as someone to it's a little like the imaginary friend. Is it someone to lean on? Do you think they just use God as an excuse?
I think some people. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I think that people generally they will find it comforting to think that that something bad happened because there was a purpose to it. There was a reason to it. The suffering that you went through wasn't just some arsehole out there decided to do it kind of thing. That somebody just did that. I think that they sort of tell themselves, well, a god, that's going to be a good thing in the end because a god determined it to happen for a reason. I think that they do that a lot. But I'm not sure what you mean by a crutch. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
No, I mean as a support system, I guess.
Well, I think the religion is the support system, sort of. So when people get into trouble, they sort of turn to their church and sort of thing. Oh, Behemoth Kamikaze says perhaps as a coping mechanism. Sure.
Yeah, coping. Yeah.
People use all kinds of things as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
I mean, I use computer games as a coping mechanism. When I feel like crap, I boot up something that makes me feel happy.
Right.
I got to admit, I use isolation as a cope. If I'm really stressed out by people, which can happen, I generally tend to isolate. A lot of things can be coping mechanisms, but that doesn't mean it's sort of a crutch.
No. I guess I feel like sometimes, and this is on a very general basis, a lot of people that I meet that are very religious would be more unhappy without religion in their life. I think a lot of people I meet that are very involved in worship meetings, and they made church the main part of their life. If they take that
Really?
away from them, I met many people like that. If I think that if you take that away from them, it sometimes it feels like I don't really like this statement of truth will set you free, because sometimes I see that maybe some people need it.
Well,
Have you
I've
ever
got a
thought of
couple of
that?
things to say to that. So, but
Yeah.
you're sort of talking away, sort of taking away their community, right? So you're sort of assuming that there won't be another community to replace it, and that's what the new atheist movement is all about. It's sort of, we don't need
Sure,
a
Mark,
god
but
to have
you would
community.
agree. Okay, let's use an extreme thing.
Well, let
Okay,
me
I have a
finish.
friend of
The-
me that is a Jehovah's Witness, right?
yes.
And she went away from Jehovah's Witness.
Mhm.
Her whole family shunned her. Her
Yeah.
all her friends shunned her,
Yes.
and she jumped
Can,
in
yeah.
front of a train because she lost everything
Oh, that's so
and took
sad.
her
That's terrible.
took her own life. And
So
I'm just
who's to
saying,
blame?
wouldn't you agree that she would be better off not knowing?
I think she'd be better off with a community that actually respects and loves her
Yeah.
instead of people whose love is contingent on you believing the same thing that they do. I think that sort of if somebody is leaving a movement and you go, well, I don't want to talk to you anymore, you are cut off from my life, that is damaging. And it's not the person telling, like, it's not them who is being freed from the bad belief system that's doing the damage. It's the belief system. It's
I
like sort
agree.
of it's like sort of when somebody leaves their family home and they completely shun them. It's not the fault of the person leaving, it's the fault of the person doing the shunning. But I think when we look at it and we talk to people who have come out of religion, they are so much happier after they've left the religion and what's called deconstructed. So that's like truly breaking
But
down all
okay,
your
but
beliefs.
let's say 1%. Okay, let's say 1% of people need religion in their life, and 99% doesn't. Doesn't it still
I
give meaning to those 1%?
Well, I don't think anybody needs religion. Like all the
I
things you can get from religion, you can get from secular places. Like if that girl had a really strong friend group, had a lot of contacts, had a support group for her,
mm,
like Recovering from Religion, for instance, does fantastic work supporting people who leave. There's multiple atheist groups that can support people leaving. That it can be I don't think those people need that amount. Now family's a bit different, right?
mm,
Your family's a bit different because family's important. We sort of talk about found families these days, the people that you're close to. That I have my best mate in Australia, my best friend in Australia. He is a absolute brother to me, more than any biological brother. Like he is. Sorry to my actual brother, but he is so close a friend. He is absolutely the person I would lean on in any circumstance. He is part of my family, right? There's no question about it. I disagree with him. Sometimes he says dumb stuff. Sometimes he's a bogan.
yeah.
He's still, I love him. He is, and like when talking to him, I mentioned somebody did something and he's like, oh, I'm going to find him and beat the crap out. It's like, dude, seriously, no, you're not. But that is so gorgeous of you. Like, seriously, he is a brother. And
Okay,
these sort of
but man,
found
I
families.
don't think you answered my question, because, and I disagree very much. Don't you agree that let's say 1% of
No, I don't think
human.
those
Okay,
1% need religion. I think they can get it from elsewhere, but they've been convinced by the religion that they need them. Religions
but
like,
are you sure? Are you sure they would?
yeah,
Are you sure those 1% would be more happier knowing the truth?
no, I don't know whether they'll be happier. Whether like, but I'm sort of saying that every time we see somebody leave religion, once they've done deconstructing, they almost always a lot happier in their lives because
Mm,
they don't have this idea of you have to be guilty for everything that you're doing. You have
yeah,
to do these things or else you're going to get into trouble. You don't have that sword hanging over your head that's, oh well, if I haven't confessed then I die. I'm in trouble. The amount one of the main um, um, indicators for mental health problems in young people, and it's specifically young people, is a belief in demons. That is
mm,
one of the key indicators, because if you think demons are out there causing stuff around you, you're living in fear of what these demons are going to do.
yeah.
And when you deconstruct it, there's no demons. Things just are crappy. Things happen in life. It's just crap. There's no
Yeah. And
demons doing
Robin,
it.
I didn't mean it condescending. That some people can't handle
No,
just
no,
I,
it's
I'm
okay, Robin.
I
Relax.
yeah.
I understand what he's saying. Are there people out there who could not cope with not knowing there's a God or believing there is no God? I'm not sure about that. I couldn't speak for them. All I can sort of
I
point
think
to.
there is. I sadly think there is.
I don't think so. And that is based upon the sort of overwhelming evidence of people coming out of religion and saying, hey, I used to think that I would have no life without God, that my life would be over. And now that I've deconstructed, I realize how much better my life is. And we hear this story time and time and time again. And
have you ever been religious, Mark?
no, no. So I'm what's called a cradle atheist. I was
You're a cradle atheist, yeah.
right,
Just
right.
like me.
But
Yeah.
I will say that doesn't mean I haven't had beliefs that I now know to be false. For instance, my family, my mum was very into astrology and crystals and oils and sort of scented oils and all that kind of stuff. Like just what I call random woo, Chinese medicine and all
I
of
love
this
random
kind of
woo.
stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it funny, but it does have serious ramifications. If you think Chinese medicine works, it can have some real serious ramifications. And I have a real world example of that. Probably the thing that twigged me to this is an absolute load of crap. And actually searching out how do we know what it is that is true? How do we find out what is true? So people have probably heard this before, but basically my mother was always tired, tried crystals, tried these therapies, tried oils, went to Chinese medicine, was doing all this stuff and getting no better. And a friend of hers basically forced her to go to, said, look, you've got to go to specialists and continue down the actual medicine route. And it was celiac disease, which is just an intolerance to gluten. So
I mean, it reminds me also of the scene of The Man of the Moon, talking about another Jim Carrey movie, where he goes to a faith healer when he's very sick, and they do this surgery that's just quack. Yeah.
Well, there is another movie called My Life with Michael Keaton, very unwatched, and it's about he goes to this faith healer kind of thing, and the faith healer kind of says, "Yeah, I can't. I'm going to heal you, but I'm not. You're still going to die." And basically, he gets him to forgive his father, release his anger, and he sort of tries to survive until he sees his son born. And so I don't have any problem with some of these things being, a lot of meditation and stuff is mindfulness. It's we understand in psychology how it works and what it does. A lot of it is things like, when you talk about improving your spirit or whatever, a lot of it is psychological and, coping with stress and all. I've got no problem with any of that. Yoga's wonderful. It's just not supernatural. That's all. It's fine.
Can I ask
It's
you a
an
very,
awesome
very
thing.
personal question? Are you afraid of dying?
No, not in
Why?
any way, shape, or form. I'm afraid of pain. I'm afraid of dying painfully. I
Yeah,
think that
well,
suck.
everybody doesn't like pain, but why
But
are you
no,
not
I'm
afraid of dying?
because it just I won't be there to have anything unpleasant. I once had a dream that I died, that I hit my head and died, and it was just blackness and calmness. Like there was nothing. Like if you've ever had anesthesia, like full
Yeah.
anesthesia, it just you don't have. So the first time I had anesthesia, I was having work on my wisdom teeth done, and they decided because they had to do so much work and it was, take a long time, they would just knock me out. So they just knocked me out. I laid down, he counted back for some 10, kind of got to 7, and then I thought someone had punched me in the face, right? Because I just woke up, or I just I went from 7 to, oh, my mouth hurts. I thought someone hit me. And there was no time in between. There was nothing in between. I was unaware of that. And so I know that when my brain's temporal counting phase, I won't have that. There will be just nothing. I won't regret it. I won't have any kind of feelings about it. I won't be there to actually be unhappy or anything like that. I will just not be there, and that's comforting to me. At some point, my ability to help this world is going to be over, and that's okay. So the best thing I can do is try to put things out in the world in a direction that I would like to see it going. And if it doesn't, it's not my problem anymore. Nothing's my problem anymore. I'm at that point. There's no me to be free, but there's no me to have to do anything. I'm gone. So I
So
actually
the,
find it
yeah.
quite comforting that sort of whatever I'm trying to do in this life won't be there anymore.
So before we talk this week, I don't know. This is not meant as a dig, by the way. I have never heard about you. So I
No
did
problem.
what
Yeah, that's okay.
I did what every human being do
Yeah.
when they meet someone. I looked up a lot of your debates
Mhm.
on YouTube. Um, One of the most interesting debates I saw that you had a debate about the moon landing.
Sure.
And there
Nathan
was a
Thompson, but
debate.
no, that wasn't Nathan Thompson. Who was that? Moon landing.
I don't remember their
Flatzoid,
name.
maybe? Flatzoid, I think,
I
maybe?
don't remember their name.
That's not important.
And
Yeah.
and that hit me uh, extremely hard. I when I was younger, I believe that we never went to the moon.
Okay.
And
Fine.
one of the reasons why I changed my mind of that is kind of and it fits in what we were talking about now, like reality and what fits in with reality. Was someone
Mm,
that said that if that was a lie, how many people would have worked on that lie and no one told on that, like
sure.
not the cameraman, not the sound man, none of the fake astronauts, none of the like the
Yeah.
people that wrote the script to that never told anyone. No one in their family even told anyone.
Mm,
Like it is so convoluted that it makes absolutely no sense of not believing in a real moon landing. And I thought to
yeah.
myself, is there a big difference between believing in the non-moon landing than believing in God? I don't really see it. It's the
What do you
same
mean? Do you
delusion in a
mean
way.
well, I kind of delusion is a bit strong.
Well,
I
you know what I mean. I didn't
yeah,
mean
I do
delusion,
know
but
what you
it's the
mean.
big.
Yeah, I think that um, yeah, I do know what you mean. If there isn't, if you can't show demonstrable evidence for something, and we can
Mm,
show demonstrable evidence for the moon landing, and like you say, there is these, sort of things that would falsify it, like you know,
yeah,
the idea that it was fake is sort of falsified by nobody in the history of this thing ever coming forward. And there wasn't one
yeah,
moon landing; there was like multiples of them.
right,
Like it
right.
wasn't just Apollo 13. There was tons of them. So, and plus all of the ground crew, people in Australia did dishes to pick up the signal and then transmit it onwards. So
Yeah, yeah. There's
yeah,
so many people involved in
right,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and nowadays the Indian Moon Agency, the Indian Space Agency, caught sight of the landing area. There's just so
Mm,
much evidence. Um,
right.
I guess it's harder to sort of deal with God because that's there's this divine hiddenness to contend with. There's this
Mm,
idea that a God is hiding itself and has unlimited power, so it can hide itself, and there's no
mm,
way you'd ever be able to, find it in some way. You have to rely on these feelings or the Holy Spirit or these other things. So I think they're not the same because a god, a moon landing is falsifiable, right? It's definitely falsifiable. A god isn't falsifiable, and we have problems with things that are unfalsifiable. Like if Sagan's invisible dragon, for instance, if he says, "Hey, there's a dragon in my closet," and you say, "Oh, well, let's have a look at
Or
it,"
Russell's teapot. Yeah.
Or Russell's teapot, right? But
Yeah.
Sagan's is better because he basically keeps changing the parameters so that the dragon, you can't find it. Like, so if you say, "I want to see it," he says, "No, it's invisible." And you go, "Well, I'll come and touch it." Well, no, it's ephemeral. Your hands will go straight through it. Well, surely it would leave tracks. Oh, well, it floats around. It doesn't leave. He's changing the parameters. And this is much like God, where, God used to live on top of a mountain, such as Mount Olympus or whatever. And as soon as we start climbing mountains, they say, "Oh, no, God lives in the sky." And the Christians believe God lived in the sky. But when we got planes and stuff, well, God lives beyond this planet. But then we got satellites to have a look at the universe and know God, and they say, well, he lives outside of the universe. So it's kind of this setting up this unfalsified ability each time that falsifiability is met. So as soon as you can get to the place to say, "Hey, we've looked here and there is no God," they say, well, it's outside of that thing. So it's constantly retreating away from us. So yeah.
What do you think about like people like that believes in presuppositionalism? Is that it? What it's called?
Presuppositionalism, yeah, presups. I don't. Most of philosophy, and I mean, I don't even start with presups.
Darth Dawkins, for example.
Sure, and I've talked to Darth before. It's kind of a bit baffling the way that he does things. Sort of sets up this series of questions in an interrogative script to get him to where he's going is kind of baffling. But the whole idea is so presuppositions. Everybody has them. Like they're not special. Everybody has them. You've got to presuppose certain things in order to live your life. Like, for instance, our senses. We've got to presuppose that our senses are describing something real, because the only way we can falsify that is with our senses, and then you're into a circular argument. You're sort of, going around in a circle. How do you validate your senses with your senses? So it's kind of this, you've got to presuppose they are at least describing something in actuality.
So what is an argument you would use against Darth? Because I find listening to Darth extremely confusing, and I feel like what is it you think he how would you turn his head around is maybe my question.
Well, so he relies on he's a presuppositionalist. He believes that so presupposition is basically believing that something comes from God, whether that be morality. You presuppose that morality comes from God, or you presuppose that coherence or intelligibility comes from God, or logic comes from God. Just one of these things comes from God. That's your presupposition. And from there, you justify a God has to exist. But for a start, you're begging the question because you've already determined that God to exist. Now, presuppositions, they can easily be rejected. You can reject presuppositions. I mean, you could reject my presupposition of my senses being correct, but in that case, why am I listening to you? Why am I actually listening to you if you won't accept that my senses are right? And it's very similar with some other things we can presuppose. But moving onwards, Darth will basically say what is foundational that determines what is possible and what is not possible in your worldview, kind of thing. Now, for a start, I mean, it just being a presuppositionalist, he's begging the question, which is a logical fallacy of assuming something's true when we haven't done it. And when we're presupposing, we try to do it as little as possible, because the more you presuppose, the more you can get wrong. For instance, if you're going out, right, and I go, "Where are you going?" And you say the train station to meet somebody. If I presuppose that that's a woman, right? If I presuppose that to be a woman of some kind, based on nothing, I'm greater chance to be wrong. if I presuppose it's a woman with red hair, I have an even greater chance to be wrong. So we try to keep presuppositions to only what is absolutely necessary, like only what we have to in order to get by. So he's not only presupposing the senses, he's presupposing that everything comes from God. Now, when he asks for a foundation, I would say the foundation to what is and isn't possible is reality, right? So if we're saying, hey, is it possible for me to jump over something, basically? What determines whether that is possible is actually reality itself, whether I have the strength to, whether I have the determination to, whether it's too high or whatever, or it's low enough. To me, that's reality. But he will say, hey, reality is a set of all things that exist using set theory. The problem with this is that a set is an abstraction. So he's basically saying reality isn't real. I've countered with him to point to, well, he tries to argue that the only thing that can be foundational for intelligibility and what is possible and not possible is a God. So all you have to do is point out one other possibility that could be foundational. Now, there's something called a monism, because he'll demand it be one thing. And there's a very complex reason for this. It's called the many and the one problem. It's sort of saying, are you one thing? Are you one thing, Fro?
I am, yeah.
But you have cells, so how can you be one thing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's called the many and the one problem, and it's a problem that's never been solved of all in philosophy, kind of thing. Like, it's never been solved. Not to anybody's, but theists will just go, well, God, then it solves. No, that doesn't solve the problem. But the whole point is that you can actually point to, and more specifically, which I did to him, is point to quantum monism. It basically says that everything, it's an illusion that things are different things, right? It's an illusion that you're over there and I'm over here, and you're one thing and I'm one thing. In fact, we're both part of the same energy sort of system, the quantum field, and we're all quantum entangled to a point where there's field here, field there, and field in between. It's all just part of the same one big universe, which is one thing. And it is in fact emergent properties of the parts of one thing that give us our idea of single objects. It's very, very complicated, but it is an alternative to that reality, what makes it possible and not possible to do stuff. It's very complicated, but he hated that. Absolutely. He threw me out for that kind of stuff. So yeah, and I don't know if that's true, Fro. That's the thing. I don't know if that's true. But when you're making a deductive argument and you're saying the only possibility is left is God, all you have to do is provide another possibility, that there could be something else that's But the problem with Darth is he mixes up what you believe and what you know and what actually is, what ontology is. He mixes them up. So
what would you say is the strongest argument for Christianity that you have heard?
I personally, it's not fantastic, but I think it's probably fine tuning. And I know that I'm going to make probably based theory mad about that one, because I watched a really good video of his sort of debunking it, and I don't think it's that strong. But I think that pointing to there is, because we don't know if parameters in the universe could be different and we would have another universe. We just don't know. We don't know enough about the universe. No, hey, if we tweaked gravity, would it all collapse? Would something else happen? Would another universe be here? Would there be a different form of life here? Would there be a universe with no life? Would there be a universe full of black holes and nothing else? We just don't know. So to sort of say, hey, the universe is fine-tuned, at the surface, it sort of is, but it's a stronger argument than like, well, I presuppose that a God created morality. It's much stronger than that. So I think it's the strongest that's there, but I think it falls down by assuming too much at the start, assuming that there's only one universe and there's not, many worlds, for instance, which I don't know if that's the case. Could be. If you can show there's only one universe and if the constants were any different, there's also the problem that could the constants be any different? Like however the universe came about, maybe the universe would always form like this. I don't know. Like I said, we've only got one universe, so I have no idea. But I think it is in these, well, we don't know enough about the universe, that kind of they wedge God into, they use a God of the gaps kind of thing. Because when talking about fine tuning, you sort of have to talk about the parameters that caused the universe, and I have no idea what that may be. So I think it opens them up for a God of the gaps in there. I don't think it's really strong, but I think it's the strongest they have. Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate this conversation, by the way, because it's been very enlightening for me. I thank you very much for taking your time to talk to me about this, because you got me thinking about things in different ways, and I like, that's why I call myself a thinking atheist. Is like, I like to think about things, and I love hearing your views on things.
Well, I mean, I do love talking about this stuff. I give my logical, what I see as logical and what I see as rational. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, atheists may have nothing to live for," but I don't think that's the case. The only people I hear that are saying are people that aren't atheists.
Atheist.
I find that
Yeah.
it may be people. I mean, atheists I mean have all kinds of different purposes in their life. They may be trying to promote science, or just trying to get their kids grown up, or they might absolutely love woodworking or something. Like they all have their passions and the things that they like. I don't see a lack of that. It's just not in a higher power kind of thing.
I guess I kind of want to end with this before we go, because
Okay,
I
sure.
also, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is because I want to become stronger in my atheistic conversation with Christians, because I always feel very, very stupid, especially when it comes to philosophy, because I know absolutely nothing about philosophy.
Oh,
And I
look,
don't really
bro,
have.
just to
Yeah.
clarify, I dabble kind of thing. I'm certainly not a
Okay.
philosopher. I just
Okay.
I read stuff. I'm autistic. I get obsessed with things and I read a lot about it, but I'm certainly not trained in any way. I have, but I
Okay.
do have some friends who are really good at it. Like Michael Granado, for instance, is a fantastic philosopher who runs a channel. Learned so much off him. Leo Filius learned so much. Like, there's a ton of people learnt so much off of them. You don't, you're not, just because you're not well educated on a subject doesn't mean you're stupid or anything. Talk to me about cars. I know literally nothing. I have no idea.
Right.
I can barely change the windscreen wiper fluid. I'm serious. I'm terrible at cars.
Is there something called a windscreen wiper? See, I didn't know that even.
Okay, but that's okay. That's all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But
No, so I guess so. For example, like, one of the things that I hear a lot of people when I talk to them, like, one of the things that really annoyed me. I was on Praise I Am's stream the other day when you were not there, and one of the Christians said to me that being an atheist is a mental disorder.
wow.
Because and I was like, I got very, very triggered of hearing that,
Well,
because
it's not in the
I
DSM-5. I'll tell you that right
sorry.
now. It's not in the DSM-5. I'll tell you that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because I actually have been like, I actually have mental disorders, and it made me really, really angry when he said that. And one of the reasons why he said that was like, oh, it's so obvious. Like when you wake up and you look around you look at the sunshine, you see the sand, you breathe in the air, you see the trees. How can you not understand that God doesn't exist? And I got like, what? And what do I say to things like that?
Well, so it kind of ties into, well, can you demonstrate that this God made all of those things? Because it relates back to something, and I won't continue, it's called the teleological argument, or the argument from design. It's sort of, look at all these things, can't you tell that something designed them? And it's sort of, no, we can't, because you're basically pointing out an attribute that they're designed, but can they point to something that's not designed? Right? So if it is true that, say, complicated things are designed, what's not designed that you're contrasting it against? What is the thing that's not designed that you say, hey, look at the trees, it's obviously designed? What are you comparing it to? Because there's nothing in this world, according to them, that's not designed. They're pointing at, say, the trees or the sunset. Why don't we point at the worms that eat people's eyes? The that fish that swims up your stream of urine in the Amazon. Why aren't we pointing out these things and saying, hey, well, that's obviously not designed. That is brutal. That is horrible. Why don't we point out, the bacteria that is constantly trying to eat you? Why aren't we pointing at that? What about all the extinct animals? Like, what was their design for? I don't know. But they point out to the sunset or the trees or, things that are nice and say, well, look, it's designed. So it's kind of appealing to that emotion with, oh, well, that's too wonderful to come about by chance. But there's horrible things out there as well. Why is that designed? Or could just be, evolution and our world threw this up. I mean, if I was an alien from a planet with a methane atmosphere or something, I might be going, this place is awful. Look at these trees producing poison. In fact, very early on in the sort of history of the Earth, when there was only plants producing fueling on carbon dioxide, plants literally produced a poison. And I might add that oxygen is actually incredibly flammable. It causes things to rust, right? It's a caustic. It's a horrible substance. We just have to use it to fuel ourselves. But all in all, it's not great. It's really not.
Yeah, no. Is there some things in philosophy of religion that you still have problems with?
Apart from free will, I still have problems with that. What do you mean by problems? Like problems understanding? Because absolutely.
Yeah, understanding, I guess. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a whole bevy of things that sort of I mean, it's quite difficult to understand a whole bunch of things, including like whether beliefs are chosen or you can't help your beliefs. They're just based upon the evidence that you have. Like, can you choose to believe in a God, or can you choose to believe in, not believe in a God? And I don't think that's possible, which is sort of, God, I'm struggling to remember the term. Non-cognitive? No, it's not. It's I can't remember the name for it, but it basically is it's sort of that what is it? See, that's what I mean. Like, there's tons of stuff that I have trouble with. Absolutely. As I said, I'm not a philosopher.
Yeah.
I just sort of dabble in it a bit. That's all.
One of the arguments that I've heard that I maybe think is the weakest is the cosmological argument for God.
Stochastic voluntarism.
Ooh,
Voluntarism. Yeah, so
nice.
it's stochasticism. It's whether you can choose to believe things or whether your beliefs are sort of things that you don't have control over when presented with the evidence. And whether you're convinced of stuff. And I honestly think you're convinced of stuff. Because I can't just choose to believe in a God. I can't do that. And people who believe in God can't just choose to be an atheist. Something has to convince you. And you can convince yourself, of course. You can, over time, you can convince yourself, but it's not really a choice. You have to see evidence and be convinced of something.
Have you ever been to a Pentecostal meeting by any chance?
No, I can't say that I have. I think I've been to a evangelist meeting once at a university, like a sort of sermon/song thing.
Yeah. What do you think about like people that talks in tongues and all that thing?
Oh, well, that's obviously not true. That's the long ending of Mark, and so Bart Ehrman goes really well into the long ending. So basically, we have these manuscripts with the long ending of Mark. It's a lot longer, and it seems out of place when you actually read them. And it sort of says that the followers will be able to talk in tongues, swallow poison, and handle snakes without fear because they can't be poisoned. We then found manuscripts that dated from earlier without that long ending in it, right? So that ending, the later you go, and I think it's only from 500 odd AD, sort of has that in it, the talking in tongues and stuff. So the short ending of Mark, we go, well, that's the long ending was added later. But you talk to people like Praise, and they say no, that the long ending was the real ones and the earlier ones were corrupted, which is insanity, because we found these manuscripts up until a certain point without that ending, and then it changes. So, it's kind of this real, they've got no reason to think this. They just want to believe that the long ending is correct. But the older manuscripts don't have it in.
Could you talk to me 2 seconds about the Kalam?
Oh, the Kalam. Yeah. So that's basically everything that began to exist has a cause.
Yes.
The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. That's it. That's the Kalam. So there's nothing wrong with the validity of the Kalam. It's perfectly logical. I might have a problem with the soundness of it. Did the universe begin to exist? I don't know. I don't know that for sure. If you listen to, say, Sean Carroll and Many Worlds, the universe may have been in an atemporal state at the start, like a quantum field without time, like so before time, basically, which is a nonsensical statement. But at the point that time originated, it may have been atemporal. That time was so slower, there was no time. So if that state is true, then the universe did not begin to exist, because begin without time is nonsensical.
Have you heard of a guy called Tom Wright by any chance?
Nope.
Okay, so he is an English New Testament scholar, and he has a lot of arguments from love. I don't know if you have heard about the arguments from love to the existence of God.
That's weird. It sounds like sort of a precept to me, sort of saying love is created by God, but I'd have to check him out. I don't know why you would. I mean, I guess you could sort of do a sort of Neoplatonic thing, sort of point to, hey, there's things outside of our physical universe because love is outside of our physical universe. But love isn't, I mean, love is just a sort of abstraction to describe certain feelings that we have, mostly motivated by certain chemicals in certain situations. There's nothing and people say, oh, well, that devalues it. I don't think so. I think it's exactly what it is.
Richard Dawkins said it was an argument from emotional blackmail, and that was kind of very.
It's kind of an appeal to emotion, like sort of saying, hey, if I mean, I don't know if Tom Wright's doing that, but if you're going, well, love can't just be chemicals and physical receptors and all of these things in your brain, it has to be something more. That is kind of an appeal to emotion. It's like sort of saying, well, you would feel bad if it's just fizzing in your brain is usually the thing that they describe, kind of thing. And it's like,
I think his most known book is called Simply Christian. It's Tom Wright's biggest book.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
I don't know if you've read that.
I have not.
No.
I haven't read a ton of Christian books, but that's okay. I mean, most of them. I was given one that was The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel, and the person giving it to me was like, "Oh, this will absolutely convince you. It's got such strong arguments," and that the sheer number of errors and leaps this guy made was incredible. It really wasn't for atheists. It was for believers, to think, hey, my faith is justified. It's certainly because he was talking about, people reporting miracles and people reporting, these things. And you're like, wait, this is like from, Spain in the 1930s or something. Like how do we even find out if this is true? But he's just assuming it's correct. So really, really weak evidence coming in. But yeah, I read it. Didn't want to read it again. I'll give you the tip right now. But,
no, I have read a lot of like Spinoza. I don't know if you have read anything of
a little bit,
Spinoza.
not a lot, not a lot.
I also have read some Hegel and Augustine and Plato, and I love learning things.
Yeah.
And I love learning. Like reading is very important for me. I love reading books. Is there any books that you would recommend someone that is kind of like doubting their atheistic beliefs?
Not really. I mean, I don't really. It depends on where their situation is. Like I do like Dr. Josh's books. If you're sort of it sort of blows open the Bible really well, why it's sort of particularly horrible. But I think he's got the Atheist's Handbook to the Old Testament. I think he was doing a new one, but I'm not sure where he is on that. I think that a lot of Dawkins' book, like the Greatest Show on Earth, is really good. I do like there used to be a travel writer. I love his stuff, Bill Bryson, who did
I love Bill Bryson. Yeah.
Was it a short history of nearly everything?
Everything, yeah. I love that one. Yeah.
That is an amazing book because it just goes through what we know, how we know it. And there's sort of, it's actually the way that he writes it, how magnificent and amazing it is, of all these sort of organisms just trying to, live and survive and, be a part of the universe. It's just incredible. I really
have you
like
read anything by Frank Turek by any chance?
Oh no, I've never read anything by Frank Turek. No. Turek's terrible. He's a terrible person. Terrible.
Stealing from God is one of the books that I had most problems with. I don't know if that's maybe one of the books I would really love you to read and give me some feedback on.
Well, I know what he says about it, kind of thing. But
yeah.
I think that
why atheists needs God to make their case is
right. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And plus a lot of his things are like, oh well, the Christians started the universities and started all these things and it's like, yeah, but at the time the only people around to do it were Christians, because Christians would attack anybody that wasn't Christian. So, it's not that surprising that Christians started some of these institutions, because that's the only people that were around. I've heard them try to take credit for the Enlightenment before, and that wasn't that was mostly deists, basically. So it's kind of this weird thing that they have to say, well, you need us, you need us. It reminds me of one of my favorite movies of all time. I brought up earlier is V for Vendetta, and the guy on the screen going, remind the people of why they need us, like it's sort of like,
yeah,
that's what they do. They
that.
sort of say, well, you need us, you need our religion. It's like, I don't think I do. No, you do. You need us. In fact, you're using us, right? And it's like, no, I'm not. Get out of here. I don't. It's just trying to convince people that it's almost like an abusive relationship where you're sort of like, what would you do without me? You'll be lost without me. And it's like, no, I might be better off.
Oh, Robin brings out one of my favorite books here. We Have Little Faith by Kate Cohen.
Oh,
that is such a good book. Love that book.
Well, this seems to be a good. We've sort of tangented off, so this seems to be a really good time to wrap it up. And I've really enjoyed talking to you, Fro. It was really good to have you on.
Same.
You don't really have anything that you're doing or anything sort of that you can promote, but yeah, keep in touch, and I hope to talk to you in the future. Definitely. Is there anything else that you want to sort of give before we exit out?
No, not that I can think of. I really, really appreciate our conversation, and it's been very, very enlightening for me. And you have actually helped me more than you will ever know. So thank you for that.
Oh,
Mark.
my pleasure. Oh, I don't know how, but if I can, sure. I love having those conversations. They're interesting. But do take care. And as I always say to everybody, thanks for tuning in first and foremost. Thanks to everybody and everybody supporting me. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you aren't already for more conversations. I'll hopefully get these conversations. I know I've been really slack on them for getting people, but I will try to start up more in the future because these conversations are really good and I do enjoy them. And always don't forget, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other. It's a big universe out there. We all need each other. And take care wherever you are. Bye-bye.